Hey everyone, this is Emmanuel. Thank you so much for downloading this week's episode of Countdown to Infinity, a Marvel's Avengers podcast. I just wanted to tell you about this week's episode. It's not brand new. In fact, it's pretty darn old, but it hasn't been released on our public feed yet. This is a Patreon exclusive episode from October of 2020. Do you remember that year? Gosh, this is a pre-Halloween 2020 episode from our Patreon feed. So there isn't a lot of new Marvel stuff coming out. There is a trailer premiering later today, I believe. This is a plug for the NFL, I guess, but it's premiering during the Monday night wild card football game on ESPN. Oh, why are we talking about football? Everyone's going to watch it anyways. But anyways, so we'll be back next week to talk about that Moon Knight trailer, as well as Moon Knight when it does release. And it's looking like it's sometime in March. So we've still got weeks to go before then. So we decided to unlock something from our Patreon feed. This is a really fun episode because John, Andrew, and myself, first of all, are just getting used to recording remotely because at the time we had already recorded a ton of in-person pods and they were just releasing during the start of the COVID pandemic. And boy, howdy, we're still in it now. But we talk about Dead Days. So this is after Endgame came out. There's a little bit of a break that actually ended up being a lot longer than we had expected. So we talked about some non-MCU movies. Those all released on the public feed as well. But we also decided to go into the source material. So this is a really fun episode because we talk about Dead Days and some Marvel Zombies stuff. And as we know in it's not a film, in the TV show What If, there's a lot of Marvel zombie stuff to really enjoy there, specifically MCU Marvel Zombies. And this is going to be a fun conversation that you'll be listening to. It's John, Andrew, and myself. It's a little bit dated. In fact, it's 2 years dated. So you may hear us make jokes about stuff that are long over, or we'll talk about Avengers Endgame a little bit, I'm sure. And at this point, it had just come out. But we're really excited to release this. And if you want to go to patreon.com/delphinpod, DELFINPOD, you can support the pod and listen to other shows like this. Really, we release 2 new episodes there every single week. Sometimes it's exclusive. So sometimes we don't release it on the public feed. There's even video podcasts there where we talk about movie trivia and our favorite movies of the year, what we're looking forward to in 2022. So there's a lot of stuff there. Whether you like Marvel or movies or anything else, it's on patreon.com/delphinpod. But we will see you next week with a brand new episode where we'll talk about that Moon Knight trailer. But until then, strap into your seats, grab some, how do you kill zombies? It's their head, right? There's no, like, werewolves have the silver bullets and vampires have the wooden stakes and garlic, but zombies, it's just their head. So grab something that can bash a zombie's head in. Oh boy. Here's our episode. Thanks so much. Welcome to Countdown to Infinity, a Marvel Avengers podcast. We talk all things Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's fine. I'm going to keep going. Nope. All things Marvel Cinematic Universe. I was about to say all things Marvel Cinematic University, which isn't a real college, but all things Marvel Cinematic Universe. And we've been talking about some non-MCU things. And we are kicking off our spooky month, October, with some comic books. We read Marvel Zombies, and we're going to talk about that now. I'm Emmanuel, and returning to the Marvel podcast from quarantine via Zoom are our 2 co-hosts. It's John and Andrew. Hey, boys.
Hey.
We are back, and also we're talking about Marvel Zombies Dead Days.
So it's funny, yeah, you said non-MCU stuff, so non-CU things in general in this part.
What a mess. I feel like it's been so long since we've all been together on a Marvel podcast.
Yeah.
I want to ask you both, and I guess, John, you can go first. This is the first year since 2009 that no MCU movies are releasing in theaters. Kind of odd, but also fitting because we had a nice conclusion to the last phase. But how do you feel about no MCU movies this year?
I think it's atrocious. No, I'm just saying. No, I mean, I think I would feel like worse if it was like if things were actually coming out, because of the sad situation that everyone's kind of going through. I applaud Disney. I mean, I know they're not doing it because for the goodness of their heart. They're not doing it because they won't make any money. But like, actually, no MCU things this year is kind of yeah. You're right. It's kind of weird. It feels weird to not talk about anything big screen Marvel-y because save for the New Mutants, which we talked about actually too. But as far as like official MCU things, it is very odd because we've gotten like a movie like every year since 2010 or something. Like it's insane.
It became kind of a tradition to go to the movies or at least look forward to some Marvel thing or wait after the credits to see if we get a small hint of that next movie or something, or Thanos. But Andrew, how do you feel? I know that there's Disney Plus stuff happening, but how do you feel about just the MCU and this break?
Well, I think John is right that if they could have released something, they would have, because Black Widow was supposed to come out this year, so it was definitely not their choice on not releasing something. But I think we're still going to get stuff. Like people say, no MCU stuff, but I still count Scarlet WandaVision. I still count that as MCU. So I think that's total BS. We are going to get some MCU stuff soon. They confirmed it to debut this year. Even in light of all the COVID stuff, which is really genius because for those of you who have seen that behind the scenes Mandalorian show, the volume is just like the next, like that's the future, man. Like you build it once and it's super expensive that one time, but the rest of the times you can just film whenever you want with whoever you want. But anyway. I do think it's good for us this break because we get that little tolerance break, that little tea break, dog.
Oh,
because I think we're really accustomed to we're just kind of spoiled on it, and I think that's part of storytelling is them making you wait for it and just keeping us on the literal edge of our seat. But I think I think it's good because when it comes back, we're gonna like it that much more. I think right now, again, it's pretty normalized, and we think that it's gonna be formulaic or it's gonna be the same old. And now we'll welcome that when it does come out.
Yeah, and I feel like everyone you brought up a really good point. There is still going to be MCU stuff because of Disney Plus, and it seems fortuitous. And oh shit, I don't know if I'm talking good tonight, but it seems like a lot of foresight in the part of Disney. They have a streaming service before quarantine. I'm not drunk, I promise, people who are listening. I'm not slurring my words. But yeah, it feels like Disney was ahead of the ball game because there are going to be people who don't want to go to the movie theaters, but it doesn't mean you're not going to get new MCU stuff because a lot of that stuff is going to be coming soon to a TV near you. Am I right? But it's spooky season. It's Oktoberfest. And we're going to be talking about some horror things. We were thinking about what are some horror themed Marvel topics that we can talk about. We already talked about Blade. We watched New Mutants.
Watch the Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider, the scariest movies in the world possible. And we fell back on a comic book series that had its run, I don't know when. I don't know if John or Andrew can give us some context on this, but we're talking about Marvel Zombies. The Zombie King himself,
Robert Kirkman.
He did
The Walking Dead.
Walking Dead. Yeah, cool. All right. Yeah, he did The Walking Dead and pays a lot of homage to George Romero in all of the things that he's done so far. He had a pass at writing some comic books for Marvel, and it did not disappoint. This is some really insane hypotheticals and scenarios we see our favorite characters in. Andrew, tell us about, before we talk about Dead Days, tell us a little bit about Marvel Zombies.
So man, I credit this specific series because I'm not like obviously like golden age or young or even silver age really. I'm talking about the ages in comic books where the golden age, was obviously when. Yeah, man, I saw Emmanuel giving me some weird looks, but that's what I
How
mean.
old? I was like, how old is Andrew? He was getting comics for 10 cents.
Well, and yeah, and so that's why I think this specific series is one of the series that got me into comic books as a kid, or not. I mean, younger. This one and World War Hulk, and so Marvel Zombies is basically an Elseworlds universe in which a plague of zombies overtakes the Marvel universe, and they're totally not prepared for it. Something like this, which I was talking to John earlier, and I was like, man, it's kind of like COVID a little bit, where like you think that like this big great nation like the United States would have this plan or contingency for something like this, and then we kind of just got blindsided by it. That's kind of the way I say that this universe is with zombies, basically just totally unprepared for a threat like this, and so they immediately get overtook, and so we get to see our favorite heroes and villains as zombies, but obviously crazy superhuman mutant zombies.
Yeah, I think that there's something scary about humans being zombies, but the idea that people beyond your power and capability can also get that
Yeah.
thing is
Yeah, it's
exciting.
pretty scary. I found out that Marvel Zombies was written in '05, started in '05, and then went on to '06. Dead Days is actually a prequel, which was written, I think, a year later in 2007, kind of just to fill in some backstory there for the people who wanted to know what Marvel Zombies was. The actual Marvel Zombies themselves were created by Mark Millar in the
Fantastic Four.
Ultimate Fantastic Four comic books. So like that was pretty interesting. Yeah, it's like what Drew said. I think this was we read these books shortly after they were released because I think it was kind of cool. We were still, we were really into zombies at that probably around 2005. So the fact that you get a comic book series with Wolverine, and we knew X-Men and Spider-Man at the time, and we knew so more or less of these other characters too. But you get it's crazy to see these horrific splash pages of of Captain America.
Sorry, that's my dog. It's
not your
he's in the
stomach.
room. No, my dog is rolling around in here.
It sounds like he has the hunger from Marvel Zombies, and their stomach is rumbling.
He's got a sickness for thickness. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, it's crazy to open up this book and see like Captain America eating, or Colonel America, excuse me, in this universe, biting off a person's head, or hearing very hopeless dialogue from Storm saying that the Professor Xavier was ripped to shreds, just moments before they started fighting other zombies, and seeing Nova lose his mind, literally go insane from the hopelessness of the situation. It's a very depressing comic, and it kind of is very Robert Kirkman-esque, because if anyone's familiar with The Walking Dead, the tone is kind of similar, minus the tights and the and the superhero aspect of the whole thing.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Dead Days. Dead Days, I feel like, is a very easy read, especially if you love comic books. It's not necessary. It's not like a graphic novel or anything. It's basically just some insane vignettes of a zombie apocalypse happening.
Right, it's a one shot, which is what Drew. I think Drew, you should explain the one shot aspect. By the way, small little tangent. This is the first ever comic we're kind of doing on anything of our podcast related, which is pretty cool. We had a colleague who did nothing but comic podcasts, and I think this is pretty cool that we're doing this. We're doing this on the Marvel Pod, which is pretty. I wonder how people are going to take to this, because this isn't a movie, but whatever.
We'll talk about later about some movie possibilities, maybe. But yeah, Andrew.
Well, and even if you aren't necessarily into comics, you kind of are, because I mean, like they have that What If Marvel series coming out, and this is totally an episode. Is Marvel Zombies?
Wow,
we're basically I think the Winter Soldier fights off the Marvel Zombies in that What If. story. But that's exactly what this is. And I mean, how Marvel started is a bunch of what if stories. What if a kid got bit by a radioactive spider? What if, this and that? And so, these are where your movies are pulling from, basically, for sure. And they do a pretty good job at staying true about, to the source material. So, but yeah. So I think that it hopefully helps and it enlightens you before you get to see the actual real deal.
I'm excited because this is definitely all of the traits and characteristics of the heroes that we know. There's Colonel America does something in this that I feel like is very Captain America ish. Everyone has those same traits. But, they're zombies, which is insane. Well, Andrew, tell us what a one shot is, because it's not like 1917 one shot. This is a comic book one shot. What does that mean?
Basically, it's a one-off story. There's no intention of there being a second issue. Sometimes there'll be a series of one-shots where, we're following different characters, but they should be self-sustained stories that you can get in one quick bite.
Yeah, per se.
Very good, very good.
So to not be so confusing though to the audience, Marvel Zombies Dead Days is specifically the one that we're talking about as a one shot. There are other Marvel Zombies comics out there that have their own series.
Yeah, their series and miniseries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's even was it Zombies versus Apes?
Yeah, Marvel
right?
Apes. Well, the Marvel Apes one, yeah, and then there's there's crossovers. I think what ties into this, and we won't get into that a whole lot because that's its own little separate thing. But there is the crossover with Dynamite Comics. I think Marvel Zombies versus the Army of Darkness, which is also ties into the. As funny as that sounds, it ties into the creation of this universe.
Let's give some context here. So this at least from what I read, it begins with a very tragic scene of Spider-Man. Well, yeah, we'll dive into it, I guess. Yeah. Well, we don't have to go section by section, but I feel like we can just talk about whichever things stood out to you. But one of the biggest things for me was seeing Spider-Man eating Mary Jane and
Aunt May.
And Aunt May.
And not the sexy kind of
and
eating.
Not the good kind. Straight up killing them and eating them. I think that's a great way to kick it off, because it is he is the quintessential Marvel character.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he's a zombie, spooky. But what are some other moments that you liked?
Well, that moment is kind of tragic because, he's on his way over to help them escape, because he kind of sees the seriousness of the situation. And so he's like, we need to get out of here. And as soon as he walks in the door, he starts feeling sick. And then he lunges at Mary Jane, and he doesn't actually, they don't show that he kills Aunt May, but it's, pretty much implied, that he does that. Because, and then I think after a while, the panel switches over to Nova going through the window, and Nova, which is a character, for the MCU fans, is the Nova Corps, but you don't know the Nova character. Is a guy who's powered by, it's kind of like a Marvel Green Lantern in a way, powered by the by the Xandarian heart or some shit, like something that and Xandar powers Nova, and he's a superpowered hero basically. He discovers Spider-Man kind of eating and munching on Aunt May and Mary Jane. And in the background, you can see the art. There's just nothing but intestines and flesh all over the place. There's bones. That is a crazy way to start off the comic, because it really hits the ground running. And then after that, you turn to a splash page of the Avengers, literally in the middle of chaos. There's loads of humans like kind of running away in horror. And they all they're drawn very, very creepily. They have some very creepy depictions as zombies. Like, everyone's kind of wide eyes and rotting teeth almost immediately. I think there's Colonel America, Wasp, Luke Cage is in there, Hawkeye in his classic 616 costume. Hawkeye, the one with the mask with the little horns and shit. That's a pretty crazy moment. But this book, like what you said, are literally vignettes of just destruction, really.
And the zombies here, Andrew, I don't know if you can talk a little bit about the story that happens right before this, but the cause of the zombies is something that happens with Magneto. And they allude to it here, but I know that there's maybe something even clearer in before this, or
Is there? I think I'm trying to remember. I think we might actually come back to this next week on this podcast. But Drew, what did you say? Like,
No, I think I think it implies that Magneto has something to do with it, but it's very weird because like this specific zombie outbreak is the outbreak that starts the real outbreak in Marvel Zombies. This is the universe it jumps from into the main Marvel universe, quotes main Marvel universe. And so there are different things that started each event, I believe, because the Fantastic Four originally discovered them in their Ultimate comic books, and again, they are other dimension beings, basically. And I think that's this dimension that we get to see here.
there's a lot of well, let's talk about these moments. What are some other things that kind of stood out to you? I know that half of them, or maybe more than half of them, are zombies already from that incident, but we get some really insane fights. Some of them are just like for a moment. We even get to see uh, who's the Billy Bugle editor?
Yeah, J. Jonah Jameson.
J. Jonah Jameson.
Getting a visit from Spider-Man in like a tiny moment. We see uh, Latveria and Doctor Doom refusing to help. I don't know how long that's going to last. Like we get basically moments with almost every character in the Marvel universe, which is insane.
And so it does a really good job at showing you how big the world is, and that's why people think that like the Russo brothers Civil War, they're like, man, that thing was great, but I was like, man, you should have seen it when it was first released on comic books. It's like a sea of heroes going up against another ocean of heroes, and in the movie Civil War, it's like 5 people or like 10 people, and doesn't make it look as impressive. But books like this, I think, are the things that open your mind to possibilities because of how well done they are. It's really just like separate stories, but they're like horror stories. And so, it's the, oh, I'm sick. And then the zombies at home, like you're killing your family, kind of like Evil Dead-ish, where like you're forced to kill the ones you love, and then
there's
you get the other one where like Reed Richards and Tony Stark and stuff like that, where they're barricade and they're trying to come up with a plan to save humanity or survival and stuff like that. And then you also get the On the Run from Nova, where like it's just them trying to put together a group to survive this thing to get to the real base. So it's really, really awesome on how hopeless he makes it seem, because there are not a lot of scenarios where the Avengers you exist and it's pretty hopeless.
Yeah, it is like a mini civil war because it's just the other half are zombies, and it I think that's the part that's really I don't want to say zombie like to me, but the idea of survival and your numbers dwindle because there's hordes and hordes and hordes and hordes of people. And I can imagine, obviously there's a lot of artwork that show Avengers just eating a ton and killing a ton of humans. But the idea that even for the superheroes, there's a smaller number and a smaller number, and there's like a small reprieve in that safe place. And then eventually, of course, Reed Richards ruins that, and it becomes just like the end of civilization. Yeah, Drew.
Well, and it's funny that you say that, because I think there's still that very George Romero zombie trope in here where like the people are worse. So you bump into like T'Challa, Black Panther, and Giant Man trying to get away, and then Giant Man instantly turns on him because he knows that he's been bit. And he knows that he's, very suspect and he doesn't want to die and stuff like that. So he instantly turns the tables on Black Panther and it's like, hey, I'm going to save you for when I do turn and I'm going to eat you. And it's the same thing with Reed Richards, where like he just kind of is on the brink of insanity because he just lost his kids and stuff like that. But it kind of makes him, lose his family ultimately.
Yeah, and the betrayal there, and I don't know. Like, obviously, I don't know how long this takes, but it seems like it could be one day of intense fleeing and fighting. But yeah, it's kind of insane. What do you think, John? What do you think about the dimension part of this? That's kind of the out for the whole thing. There's like a literal MacGuffin in this, where there's a tool made to kind of escape this planet because there's just nothing you can do against all of these zombies.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that's very much in the line of a giant Marvel crossover, kind of like this, where everything, or a giant Marvel event. I think even like fucking Nova says it out loud. Like, he's like, well, we have, events like this. We all come together at least once a year or something for some sort of event. And I know an interdimensional event is a big one. So this one kind of is not yet. I mean, it's hinted at in this story, but this does kind of span multiple dimensions after you get into the actual series of it. I think that's pretty awesome because, like, in comic books, you can do. That's usually one of the more interesting parts of these superhero comics is the fact that you can dip into other worlds and see what's going on. I mean, hell, this whole story is basically an alternate take on the regular Marvel universe, because in the regular Marvel universe, no one's eating each other really, unless you're, a hero that eats other villains, but they're not eating each other in George Romero's zombie fashion, where, they're basically, where they're basically monsters. Because I think it hits harder, or a very macabre like story like this hits harder because you're so used to these heroes like being the good guy and being like, very cool characters, like like Spider-Man, like the Spider-Man part at the beginning. There's almost some sort of crazy weird humor to that, like seeing like a guy who saves, like, probably over the course of his entire comic career, probably saved millions of people, and then for them to kind of start munching on said people is to me, it's a little comedic, and I think there's some dark humor there, at least maybe for the writers, for Kirkman, to write it like that. But that interdimensional, like that MacGuffin that's in there, does play a role in the upcoming stories. And since this is just a part one of a Marvel Zombies Halloween countdown episode, we will probably get more into that as next episode, basically, because that's pretty important.
These zombies, the zombified heroes are different than other zombies. They're not slow and they're not like dumb. They're very. I think it almost is like there's just a hunger there but they have full cognition. They're strategic. They're like, oh, we got to turn some more of us, and I think that's something that's really interesting too. Is this is a different kind of zombie, and it may be just because they're super that they're still able to kind of work as a team.
Yeah, I think it's really crazy because at one point that it's we referenced that Spider-Man, the opening scene, but that's what makes it kind of scary because like he's telling Aunt May like, please go into the restroom and lock it shut and stuff like that, when the door's not going to help because it's fucking Spider-Man. He's going to get through that door and he's going to eat your ass.
Millennial.
Yeah, but I also think it's really cool that, they try to stop where Cap's like, hey, we should go to Avengers Mansion and try to figure out like what's going on. Like my hunger subsided for a little bit, but now we need to fix this.
What?
Yeah. No, that was it.
Oh, okay.
Why did you say, oh snap? Did a zombie break through at your house or something? Or
I don't know. I think my internet skipped a little bit, but I got all of the audio. It was just
okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, I thought you were getting robbed. I was like, oh man, John, we got to go over to his place
and see what's left. No, I think that I think that that's probably what I like the most about this series is they still try to find moments where, like, obviously Reed Richards wouldn't get along with Tony Stark because they are competing, and that's still here. Or the Fantastic Four, Sue Storm is always more like the morality of the Fantastic Four, and that's still there too.
Yeah,
all of those characteristics are still there. Yeah, John.
There's a part where like Pym kind of is weirded out by the fact that like the zombies are eating Jarvis, like they're eating Jarvis, and and then they're kind of like, he's like, so you don't want a piece like of this, and he's like, I just don't want to give, I just don't want to. Like the idea of giving up so easily. And I think Hawkeye's like, well, I killed like 12 people today. I don't think there's redemption coming for us, even if we did like fix ourselves. And so like it's little moments like that kind of make you that humanizes them in a way, sort of, because they're very aware of what they're doing. They just can't stop because of the hunger, which in later episodes or later issues, it's explained that it's kind of like a drug, But we'll get into that.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Well, I want to ask y'all how you think this would translate to. I mean, you already talked about the What If series that's coming out, but let's say that in some world, Marvel Zombies was greenlit as a live action feature, and it may not be out of the realm of possibilities because Walking Dead is about to wrap up it's like 4,000th season. So there's definitely a market for it. But what would you all think if Marvel Zombies was to be maybe translated? Even maybe not even the actors from the MCU that we know and love, but just the characters themselves, Spider-Man or Thor as zombies.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I guess I'm going first. I actually think it'll be really cool. I think this universe has become one of the more popular like alternate Marvel dimensions. Aside from the 616 main continuity.
Yeah.
Because that's only that's only proven by the fact that I think Marvel Zombies every other year still puts out like another issue, right, Andrew? If I'm not
Currently,
wrong.
at the time
Yeah.
that we're recording this, there's another Marvel Zombie series that just came back. It's called Marvel Zombies Resurrection, and I think it's on issue number 3 right now.
Yeah, see, like the fact that they're still making Marvel Zombie storylines means that this is probably one of the more popular ones. So I have no doubt that we'll see, you guys already mentioned the What If storylines, which will probably have, anytime you see now a zombie in with something Marvel related, it can technically, it's influenced off of these Marvel Zombies, like, kind of comics. So, and then Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is coming up. So what if we get like a fan nod to a zombie verse in that one, which would be really cool. So I think I think translating or adapting these characters can only, I guess, put a fresh spin on what we've already seen before. It kind of isn't a little ridiculous. It's a little bit of ridiculous, and that you run the risk of jumping the shark. But if you keep it very brief and just as an Easter egg, or not so much fan. I guess some fan service. If you keep it like that in a way, especially with like a multiverse hopping plot, then I think it'll work kind of well.
Andrew, what do you think? You think the kids will freak out?
Yeah, and so I think to be really, really good and on par with the book, you need to be rated R, which I think Marvel and Disney have to be okay with releasing. But I think that you already kind of have one foot in the door with Deadpool, and I think that you can make it a grindhouse movie with Deadpool versus the Marvel Zombies, and not explain it at all, just like drop him out of a dimension, because obviously he messed with Cable in the second one, and so him hopping dimensions, you already kind of expect him to get into some weird stuff. And so Deadpool is already rated R, Deadpool 1 and 2. And so you can have him hacking and slashing the MCU versions of, they don't have to be, I'm saying costume accurate, because you can just basically have stunt doubles and costumes zombified and make them all look scary. And Deadpool can fight all these. And then that's the way you can kind of transition him into the MCU. Maybe he hops another dimension and then he is in Doctor Strange, or Wanda has ripped him out of whatever, or, whatever type of creativity you can get there. But again, I think that there is still possibility. You just kind of have to get the right writers and ideas to help it work.
Yeah, and I think there was oh, sorry, what were you saying? Oh, did I freeze? Oh, sorry. No, I guess my bad. Then I guess I'll go on or finish the thought. Because I think there was a question that someone asked Feige, like maybe a fan question on on an interview somewhere, and I think he expressed interest on like he's like, well, that's an idea. I mean, that's like he didn't shoot it down immediately, but I think he expressed interest in one day bringing the Marvel Zombies to screen because. Like what Drew said, I mean, you can do literally an adaptation of like Deadpool versus the Marvel Universe and just make that Marvel Universe like zombified, which, will give justification to Deadpool to hack and slash all these heroes.
I think John, you brought up a point of it just being like maybe a glimpse as we're traveling through all these different universes of, a zombie Captain America. I think that's more likely, but also I feel like Marvel's going to be around for a really long time. The comics haven't stopped since they started, and I feel almost the same way with the movies. So who knows? At some point, we may get an offshoot of something and people may just be fed up with the same hero coming back and saving everyone over and over again, and are maybe even fed up with anti-hero of like a hero who they may not like all the time but still saves everyone, and may just want full-on anti. And we may get a Marvel Zombies thing. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have said, I mean, I guess Walking Dead is a different thing because it's a little bit more original than Marvel Zombies, but they've shown that comic books about zombies work on a stage, but we'll have to see how this What If works. This What If may be awesome, and people may be like, "Wow, that's so cool to see zombies fighting each other with full superhero powers." But yeah, cool. Any other thoughts on Marvel Zombies? I guess just Dead Days.
Yeah,
Dead Days.
I think some final thoughts would be if anyone's interested in this comic that we just talked about, obviously go read it. And, if you haven't already, and see if you can track down Marvel Zombies versus the Army of Darkness, which actually ties into this a lot. And because it has a good amount of zombie action and humor, since, you're dealing with Ash Williams, the protagonist of the Evil Dead franchise, which is pretty cool. Other than that, I mean, just stay tuned to our part 2 of Marvel Zombies, which we talk the actual Marvel Zombies series and the Ultimate Fantastic Four tie-in.
Yeah, what John said. I think that even if reading isn't your thing, I guess you can just listen to the next episode and we'll kind of explain it or dumb it down for you. But yeah, I think that you know that moment in an Endgame, spoiler alert, when Captain America lifts the hammer. Well, when I read that moment the first time before the movie, it gave me the same type of feeling, and I was super excited, and it blew my mind. And so the comic books do that to you. And so I think you should, even if you're not, again, you're kind of you only do the MCU stuff or stuff like that, I think you should read some of the source material because it has the potential to blow your mind. If you like zombies and you like Marvel, this book is for you. And it sounds cheesy, but I think it's really, really, I mean, the first couple, it's really, really good writing. And especially because, again, it is Robert Kirkman. But yeah, you should totally check it out and open your mind.
The first couple, was that a dig at Machine Man?
Oh my gosh.
Yes, Machine Man and Howard the Duck. That was a dig directly at those characters.
You brought up the hammer scene with Captain America, and it's almost like the opposite of that. Not in terms of like the epicness, but the ending of Dead Days is insanely not sad, but it's crazy. It's just as wild because everyone is a zombie.
Yeah, it's like the world ends. Like they didn't save the world; they destroyed it. In this case,
yeah,
it's about as crazy as you can get.
I really wanted to see your take on it, Emmanuel, because I knew that you were going to be reading this book probably for the first time. But again, I think it opens all other avenues of possibility on what a Marvel story could be because it works.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really cool is there is I mean, I'm sure at some point there will be I don't know. I mean, I assume there's going to be like actual big bad villains, but they're not really battling anything other than themselves, and this virus, and it almost shows the flaw in heroism that the at the end of this, the altruistic thing for them to do is not save anyone, and that is really sad, but also really complicated. But yeah, all right. Well, hey, boy, howdy. That was our first episode. We're breaking records. It's our first podcast on a comic book. It's our first Halloween episode. It's our first where we're not really even talking about the MCU at all. This is groundbreaking stuff. And it's the first where we're trying to avoid a presidential debate at the same time of of recording a pod, and I think we're the winners here.
Totally true.
But what do you all have to plug, John?
Nothing actually. Like I always say nothing and then go into actual plugs.
I know.
So something. Listen to this podcast, obviously Countdown to Infinity. I think there's episodes kind of bi-weekly, if I'm not mistaken, still like kind of still going on. There's updated episodes with Sophie and Emmanuel, which are awesome.
We still do a news podcast every single Monday. Haven't skipped a week.
Nice.
And these are on Thursday in October. So it is October 6th. Wait, hold on. It is October 8th right now.
Oh, awesome. Well, in that case, we might be able to kind of like, do more, almost like maybe pick and choose Marvel Zombies after, we read through the next Marvel Zombies episode. So listen to Countdown to Infinity, listen to Countdown to Skywalker, listen to Revenge of the Sequel, which was also having a Halloween themed month there, which is, you got some exciting movies to watch. And we had a lot of fun recording them. I hadn't seen, I think, 2 of those movies there, which is pretty awesome. And then, stay safe out there. If you don't have to go out, obviously don't, because, we're still in a pandemic. Wash your hands, wear a mask if you can. If you have to, no, not if you can. If you have to go out, please do those things. And go vote if because this is in October. So like their polls should still be away, or
polls will be straight up open next week.
Yeah, from the time of this airing. So yeah, please go vote. Do your country a favor.
Yeah. Andrew, what do you have to plug?
I think everyone needs to be wearing a mask when you go out to vote. I think everyone should be washing their hands excessively and not touching anything. I also think that now that we're into the comic book territory, that you may be comfortable enough to go out and visit me at my place of work, which is a comic book shop called Heroes and Fantasies. And so if you like the Marvel Zombies, then I could totally hook you up with the newest series or an older series or whatever it is you're looking for, safely and social distance wise and all that good stuff.
I echo what everyone says. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast, even through the year with no Marvel movies or MCU movies. You can support the podcast at patreon.com/DelphinPod, DelfinPod. And you get free stuff there and exclusive episodes of the show. I feel like this might be there early. I don't know, probably. But also, it is too late if you're in Texas to register to vote, but if you did register, you can start early voting now, and that's really, really important. We want to make sure that you do that. But thanks so much for being on, John and Andrew, for the first time in a long time. Back, baby. All right.